Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's be honest. Shopping, not my thing. I go to the store. There's a lot of people that, it's just not my thing. It's not football. All right. I spend way too long scrolling websites just looking for something simple like a nice pair of jeans. And I'm either overwhelmed by all the choices or can't find anything my style and end up with stuff that doesn't fit and doesn't work. That's why I use Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylists who handle the rest. They take care of the work for you. They send you a fix box with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time. You look great, and you don't even have to think about it. That's the best part. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, always, and no subscription required. Plus, get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/podcast to get $20 off your first order, and they'll waive your styling fee. That's stitchfix.com/podcast.
What's up, y'all? It's Drewski, and I've teamed up with Mountain Dew to produce a hilarious new basketball podcast called The Dew Zone with Drewski. Learn the backstories of your favorite ballers and celebrities like Jamal Murray. Did you have like a favorite team? Was it the Raptors at the time or no? Was the Raptors even started around that time?
Come on, bro. I ain't that old, fam. You talking like I'm 50.
Taylor Rooks, Asia Wilson, and many more. You won't want to miss this. Listen to The Dew Zone with Drewski on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, Blue Wire listeners. I'm Greg Olson. I'm excited to partner with Blue Wire to bring you TE1, a podcast where I interview the tight ends who have revolutionized the position. Listen in as I have raw, in-depth conversations with the all-time greats like Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, and George Kittle. We'll explore how the tight end position has changed over the last 60 years and what it takes to be the very best. Subscribe to TE1 from Blue Wire Studios today, so you're ready for the August premiere.
He's turning into a guy that, like I said, we rely on to make plays on both ends of the floor, and he's important to what we do. But I can't think of a guy that, he reminds me of that I've been around, those kinds of players. But I think Mikal is going to be his own guy, and I don't want to put anybody else as a label on him because I don't want that to limit what he can do.
Welcome to the timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam,
Mike.
Jonathan Simmons, Danny Green, Robert Covington, Fred VanVleet.
Oh my
Quinn
God.
Cook,
This is where you're
Seth
starting?
Curry, Jeremy Lin, Chris Anderson, Marcin Gortat, Justin Holiday, Anthony Tolliver, Nick Nurse, and Hassan Whiteside. What do all those players and coaches have in common?
None of them are on the Suns.
They all got their start in the G League.
Yeah.
In the G League,
Well,
that's right. Well, some were the D League, I guess, at the time.
I like that. I really like that you started that way, because usually you start the conventional way, which is to ask me how I'm doing. I'm fine. By the way,
I like that you answered it anyway.
Well, but I wanted to check on how you were doing, because I truthfully didn't know, and I think we just got some insight into how you are doing. Because for those who don't know, it's been a day to be on Suns Twitter, and it's been a day to be a Suns fan in general. And watching your Twitter feed, Mike, this morning or early afternoon, whenever it was in Phoenix time, there was a point this afternoon at which I thought you were ready to take a pitchfork and go burn down the corporate establishment in the Phoenix metro area. So truthfully, how are you doing, and how are you feeling 8 or 9 hours later about the whole situation?
Honestly, I feel tired.
Yeah,
and
it'll
not
do that to
like
you. It's been a long day.
Right. It's not even like physically tired. It's just like emotionally tired. And here's why I think that everyone listening knows sort of what's happened in the last 24-ish hours. But for those who don't know, the Phoenix Suns, I almost just said Robert Sarver directly. The Phoenix Suns sold the G League affiliate, which was the Northern Arizona Suns, to the Detroit Pistons in a sale that I'll be honest, I did not even know was possible. I guess it makes sense. Like, it's its own franchise in a way. And it was sold to the Detroit Pistons, which leaves the Phoenix Suns without a G League affiliate. And we will talk about why that matters, because I think some people are downplaying that a lot. On the same day that it was announced, not really announced, just kind of leaked out by people who know people that work for the Suns, that the Suns also laid off at least 30 employees that we know of so far, including some longtime employees of the Phoenix Suns. One person described it as it was just employee ID numbers and salaries that mattered to the team, and that's it. Meaning that they did not take into account people who have served the Suns for a long time, served the community for a long time in that sense, because they worked for the Suns. They just laid people off to save the money. And I understand that we're working in interesting environments, you can say. But the team is owned by a guy who's worth over $1 billion probably at this point, just based on his ownership stake. $400 million is what his net worth is listed online. Yes. But he also has a controlling stake of the Phoenix Suns, which could be worth up to $1.5 billion, right?
Yes.
So that's a lot of money. And that money, whether it's liquid or not, allows you to create liquid money, liquid assets that maybe could allow you to keep employees on while we're going through this difficult time. So for me, I was pretty angry about all of this, because I think it's a combination of screwing people over, one, by firing them, and two, getting rid of an important developmental part of the Phoenix Suns, something that James Jones himself was touting the importance of just about less than a year ago at this point. It was November 2019. He was talking about how important the G League affiliate was to developing players for the Phoenix Suns.
Right.
That means that they are no longer valuing that in some bullshit statement that James Jones released with Robert Sarver pointing a gun at his head, I assume, basically saying that the G League team is no longer important to the development of players. They're focusing on the 11 to 15 players that are on the Phoenix Suns roster instead of pushing it beyond that. How do you feel? What's your thoughts on this?
If we're being honest, I have a lot more to say about the overall situation, the stuff you were covering a couple minutes ago, but just about what you just said. Did they ever care about the G League affiliate? Did the Suns did we ever get the vibe that they cared about the Northern Arizona Suns? We still had unfilled two-way slots throughout the entire season that we could have used, but we didn't. And the guys that we did sign, Jared Harper and Tariq Owens, this year in particular, last year I think they used only one two-way slot on Juwan Evans. I don't hold it against those guys that they never went anywhere. Most guys you sign on two-way contracts don't actually become productive NBA players, but I don't even think it felt like there was a lot of effort expended into really incorporating them into the organization. And that's just kind of my vibe, but I'll turn it back on you. Like, honestly, do you feel a year ago when James Jones said the G League is important to us for X, Y, and Z reasons, did you honestly feel that he was telling the truth, or was that just lip service as well?
Let me read this. This was posted November 16th, 2019 Here's the title of the article that was on the Phoenix Suns website. Suns dedicated to using G League to grow and develop young players. And here's a quote. "It's vital for our program," Jones said. "If you look at the opportunity for our players, our coaches, and our staff to develop, it's critical." Right? Vital and critical. We have one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and that's not just players. It's also staff. Right? Nick Nurse won a G League championship and is now the best coach in the NBA. It affords us an opportunity to grow and develop, and that's important when you're trying to do what we're doing. And later in the article, he said, if we assign guys like Jalen and Jared, those guys are down there learning, growing up, and it helps when they're up here. So it helps that they can be on the same page. More importantly, and this is a good part, it affords our coaches the chance to expand their skill set, expand their understanding of our concepts, and increases discussion. That league is really vital to developing the communications between coaches and players at this stage in their careers. Every player knows how to play. He perfectly encapsulates what's important about the G League.
Yeah, and I think, look, all I'm saying is I think everything in that statement is correct. I personally value the G League. I guess I'm just saying I think similar to what James Jones did today, where he lied to all of us because he is the mouthpiece of Robert Sarver and that's what he's being paid to do. The same was true of him in last November, and that wasn't really how the Suns viewed the G League, even if it's what they said to the public.
Something else happened that summer, though, that made me feel like they did value it, and that was a 4-year contract to a 19-year-old player who never went to college.
That's a great point. That is a great point.
They clearly valued it at some point, and they signed a guy named Jalen LeCue to a 4-year contract, right? It's 2 years upfront guaranteed, 2 team option years at the end of that contract.
Well,
he could be dropped after that second year, which at this point, he's going to be, right?
Well, let's talk about what that means now. So what it means is, for just to kind of cover a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, the Suns now are without a G League organization. What does that mean? There are 2 other franchises in the NBA, the Portland Trail Blazers and the Denver Nuggets, that currently do not have a G League team. It is still possible, even without a G League team, to send players down to the G League. This is something that very recently the Denver Nuggets did with Bol, as he was trying to rehab, and now he's back, and there's a whole big storyline about that. However, so right there, what does it mean? It means the Suns can still at least kind of pretend that they are paying attention to Jalen LeCue and send him to some other team's G League affiliate. In actuality, what does it mean? That whatever team you send that prospect to, because it's owned by a different organization, they are under no obligation to give any sort of shit or any sort of playing time to your prospect. And so, the Suns technically can, no one can deny them. They can work out a deal if they have a player that they desperately want to send to the G League, say for a rehab stint, and you just want to get them kind of reps, you can send them down somewhere. But other organizations basically don't have to pay much mind to them. And so that's a really bad thing for the Suns, and it's a really bad thing for an organization that has talked so much over the past year about how interested they are in kind of rebooting the culture. You can't really have a positive culture if you're the only team in the NBA without a G League affiliate. And people are going to point out that, like I just said, Denver and Portland don't have G League affiliates. Denver and Portland are going to get G League affiliates soon. And at the end of the day, the main point here, the bottom line, is that the Phoenix Suns in this realm, in a time when also, mind you, people are becoming more and more wary of the NCAA, and there are more and more college prospects, high school prospects, who are considering foregoing the NCAA entirely to jump straight to the G League. In this era of basketball, to be the only team moving in a negative direction, to actively be going away from that system, is a very bad look for the Phoenix Suns.
That's such an excellent point. I'm so glad that you said that. There are 5-star recruits that are skipping college entirely and joining the G League. The Suns will not have a leg up on any of those guys. Yes, they will be in the draft anyway, but it still matters. You want to have the right thing. And I didn't finish this quote. I want to finish the way that James Jones said this. He says, every player knows how to play. They just don't know how to play the way we want them to. And that's the importance of the G League and owning your own G League team. You send Jalen LeCue to another team, they're not even obligated to play him minutes at all. But what they're also not obligated to do is develop him the way that you want him to be developed. They're not obligated to instill the kind of culture that you're trying to develop on your team. That means you could send them somewhere and it actively makes them worse, or a worse fit for your team. The point is, not being able to control that at all is the problem. But the real problem, if we want to just zoom out a little bit, it's that the Suns have an owner that doesn't value player development enough to invest the money into that team. No matter what they say, this was 100% about saving money. He is just being cheap. And that's his reputation already.
Here's the thing, though, that I wanted to say. The other thing about this situation. Does it bother me? Yes. Am I angry? Yes. There are many, many teams, though, that are going to be confronted with kind of financial crises soon due to COVID. I think the optics of the situation with what the Suns specifically did to be the first team to come out and make this sort of announcement, because I do think it's possible that other teams... I don't think anyone else is going to sell their G League affiliate, I'll be honest. But I do think there are other cost-saving measures that are going to come out. I think other teams owned by rich billionaire owners who can afford to keep their staff on payroll are going to do the wrong thing in quarter 3 and quarter 4 of 2020. And I think other teams are going to fire portions of their staff as well. I don't think Robert Sarver is going to be the only one to do that. I do think it was the absolute worst decision possible of him to choose to be the first one to do it, because now he has the ire of the entire fan base, the community, as kind of we see all of these things culminate together. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is, why is Robert Sarver the first owner to make these moves? And maybe if you're a Suns fan, you can look at this as kind of the bright side, if there is any bright side to this, is that there could be a hint of desperation coming from Robert Sarver. The reality of Robert Sarver, you talked about how the Suns are valued so highly and how none of that money is liquid. It could be made liquid in certain ways, but for the time being, what we know about Robert Sarver is that he has a net worth of $400 million, which you could Google, which makes him a small fry comparatively to most NBA owners, and so he might start to feel those financial impacts a little bit faster than other people. And it is possible that there is this hint of desperation coming from him. He felt the need to sell the Northern Arizona Suns. I don't even know how much they would be worth. I can't imagine they're very profitable, by the way, but to sell just to give him enough short-term cash to kind of avoid having to sell the entire franchise. It is possible that he is negatively impacted to the point where he has to sell the entire franchise. And I think maybe that's kind of the one bright spot that you could see here.
And I just want to say this is not unprecedented in Phoenix sports. It's not even unprecedented with the Suns themselves. I had a conversation with Bob Young. By the way, if you don't follow Bob Young on Twitter, he's an old school Suns reporter. He reports on Arizona sports in general. At Bob Young, THI is his handle on Twitter. And he brought up, I was talking about Robert Sarver and potentially selling the Suns at some point, and he brought up something that I thought was interesting. He said that Jerry Colangelo, when he sold the Suns, his net worth was $25 million. The Suns sold for $400 million at that time. He sold the team because, I'm quoting Bob here, he sold the team because it had become so valuable, the family didn't have enough liquidity to pay the inheritance tax if he passed, because he had cancer at the time, and that forced him to sell the team. It forced him to sell the team at that time just to have enough cash on hand to be able to give his money to his kids if he passed. That's the kind of thing that not having liquid cash, that's the kind of problem that could develop based on that. Obviously, we don't know the actual financial situation of Robert Sarver. It's possible he has a lot more money than we expect. It's possible he has a lot less than we expect. We really have no idea. There's not a lot of reporting on that kind of thing for Robert Sarver. But there is a small chance that this is pointing at a potential financial problem that he's looking at that could eventually snowball into him selling the team entirely. And I'm trying not to hold on to that hope, though.
No, neither am I. I think it's a small chance. I don't want to give anyone too much hope, but I think effectively if Robert Sarver were to sell the Suns, that is the only reason he would do so. He would do so because he is kind of strapped for cash to the point where he paid $400 million together. You know, obviously he didn't put down the entire $400 million, but he collectively put down $400 million on the sports franchise back in 2004.
Which was a record.
Which was a record at the time. Only 16 years later, it is worth $1.6 billion. A 400% return on investment over a decade and a half sounds pretty good to me. However, if Sarver is able to survive the current recession, because the entire country is going to be in a recession probably for the next year, if not more, he's going to hold on to the franchise. He's going to hold on to the franchise because the NBA has established a culture where it is acceptable for owners to treat their teams as a vehicle for nothing other than financial growth and kind of to stick up a middle finger to the fans and still be able to pump profit out of it. Because if he is able to survive COVID, if he can wait out another 10 years, Robert Sarver's not that old. He's only 61 years old. If he can wait another decade, the Suns may be worth $3 billion. And why would you sell now when you could sell then? I think you're right, Mike. I don't want to give anyone too much hope, but I think why would he be the first owner to announce these kind of desperate cost-saving measures when he knows what that's going to look like? It maybe points to him being a little bit desperate than kind of some of the big fish.
Yeah, I think one of the frustrating parts of all of this is it sort of all came down after that amazing scrimmage. We were all sort of on a high after the Suns played their last game because Mikal Bridges is essentially turning into a star right before our eyes. And then, of course, we have Robert Sarver there to take all our joy away the very next day. But let's talk about that scrimmage a little bit. I know you didn't watch it live. I think a lot of people who are following me on Twitter, by the way, if you don't follow us on Twitter, follow both of us. I'm at Protected Pick. Sam is at Scooper Hoops. Follow both of us. I tweeted along in that game. I think a lot of people know my feeling about that game. But you watched it later. What did you think?
Well, it's funny that I was live tweeting the game, but then I watched it later. It was one of those games where I tweeted based on the box score. I tweeted something like Mikal Bridges, future superstar, just because I was getting so excited just watching the box score. I wasn't even watching the game. I watched the game later, and yeah, I mean, I think the thing that stands out, right, is Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton combined for 16 points in a scrimmage, and you still beat a very good team. That's the takeaway. I looked it up, and the Suns this year were 1-13 in games where Devin Booker scores less than 20 points. So the idea that he could score 9 points for you and you still come away just based purely on Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and Ricky Rubio also actually played very, very well in this game. I think it just, and also not to mention how poorly the bench played. I don't even blame them because we're without some key pieces right now, and Dario Saric is getting better, Aaron Baines, Kelly Oubre obviously have to come back. So the lineups that they were throwing out, Monty was throwing out towards the end of that game, were true desperation lineups, like 4-guard lineups that absolutely made no sense, and no one on the bench was able to get it going. The fact that you still win that game, there's a lot of talent on this starting lineup. Like, a lot of talent. The Suns might have the worst bench in the NBA or very close to it, but they might have a top 10 starting lineup at this point with the way Mikal Bridges is going, the way Kelly Oubre clicked this year, obviously Ayton, Booker, and Rubio and all those guys clicking as well. But yeah, Mikal Bridges, obviously the guy to watch from the scrimmages. He has been truly fantastic.
Yeah, I think no surprise here for us. I think that we've always sort of believed in his star potential. And we talked about it last week, and I just think he had another game where, I mean, even with our high expectations for what he is and what he can be, he probably surpassed that, and that's a pretty nice thing to see.
I got to be honest, Mike. Like, I've talked in the past about would it be nice for Mikal Bridges to be the next Paul George? Yes. But if you ask me my most likely comparison for Mikal Bridges all throughout the past year, I would have said something like Shane Battier, and I know a lot of smart Suns fans on Suns Twitter who have agreed with me in the past, on that sort of assertion. So then to see him go out and drop 26 points on 10 of 12 shooting and take guys off the dribble and shoot with the level of confidence that he is shooting,
yes,
it is something that blew away even my expectations.
Can I say a player that I've been saving to say until right now?
Fine.
Sean Marion.
Oh, okay.
It looked like Sean Marion. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Because
offensively, like without the offensive putbacks and stuff. Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have the rebounding. I think that's one of the things that is underrated in Sean Marion's game. But the way that Paul George creates a shot is not the way that Mikal Bridges is creating a shot, right? There's a lot of left and right dribbles. There's a lot of little crossovers. It's more of an isolation thing. Mikal Bridges, from what we know, he does not have that yet. That could be the next development in his game. We don't really know. But attacking closeouts, shooting threes, running in transition, those are all things that Sean Marion does.
Yeah.
And of course, the defense. That it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. And a little bit of Pascal Siakam. Siakam's more of a ball handler now, too, though.
For sure, a little bit of Siakam. The way that he has, and again, this is just based on 3 scrimmage games. This is not my opinion of what Mikal Bridges has been throughout his entire career because we just haven't seen it. But the way he can kind of hit the 3 now, the cutting, the transition play, his ability to play make for others. If you want an example of a guy who maybe rebounds less than Marion, I see some young Andre Iguodala in there as well. Not quite. It's hard. It's almost like
young Iguodala had a lot of mid range.
It's almost pointless. It was a different league back then. It was almost pointless to make these comparisons because like prime Iggy was just so fast and quick, and he was gunning it down like every possession. And he would go coast to coast frequently. Mikal doesn't do that yet. You know what's funny? You haven't heard it yet, but I'm starting this podcast with a quote from Monty Williams saying that there's really no comparison. There's no one like him. That is funny. There isn't. He's totally unique. One other thing I wanted to talk about in that scrimmage, and then if you have anything else, you can get to it too. Starting Cam Johnson, I loved it. I loved it a lot. I think that the off-ball gravity and the gravity when he catches the ball at the three-point line that he brings to a team because of the quickness of his shot, right? Dario Saric can shoot threes, but the speed of which that Cam Johnson gets shots off and the threat that he is just standing at the three-point line just allowed so much space for that ball to move around. And he just makes decisions a little bit faster than Dario Saric because Dario Saric is kind of slow in general. So having that out there, I think, was really impressive. I'm getting closer and closer to just sort of getting rid of the idea of any sort of power forward on this team at all and just running wings constantly. And I think when you think about this team and you think about those bench lineups that you were talking about with 3 or 4 point guards, that's because the shortage in wings. Dario Saric rolled his ankle, we should say, and that's why he wasn't in this game. We're not sure the status on him just yet. I'm sure we'll get some news about that before the first game on Friday. But without Kelly Oubre, without Dario, there's a huge shortage of wings already, and I think that's why when we look at a guy like Devin Vassell, who we've talked about on almost every podcast since we first talked about him, that's why it still makes sense. Sometimes people say, why draft a wing? You already have Mikal Bridges. You already have Kelly Oubre. This is why. It's a perfect example why. They play 2 positions, and if you're planning on playing them at 3 and at 4, then you need more flexibility with that. You need 4 or 5 of those guys if you can get 5 of them, really. And that's the ideal scenario because those guys are so versatile. And in a funny way, this is not going to become a free agency episode. We're not going to talk about it, but like there are good wings in free agency too that the Suns could go out and get that fill those needs. And if there's any kind of thing that I want Suns fans to remember, it's not about points per game. It's not about adding a certain stat of any kind as we approach this free agency. So many people kind of go into it with this idea of, okay, we need a backup point guard for Rubio and we need a power forward and we need this many points per game and then we'll be set. I think the most important thing is positional versatility. You can get a point guard, but he should be able to play the 2. You can get a shooting guard, but he should be able to play the 3. Right. You can get a small forward, but he should be able to play the 4. The more guys you load onto your roster in the modern NBA who can play 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, etc., the better equipped you will be to create better lineup combinations, to better optimize those lineups, and ultimately be a successful team. I just think that's the name of the game these days, and that's why we've seen success recently. Mikal can play 2-3, Booker can play 1-2, Kelly can play 3-4, and Saric arguably now can play 4-5. That's a huge reason why the Suns have been so successful this season, and kind of as you think about which names you're actually interested in targeting, that should be a big thing, I think, on people's minds. It certainly is on mine. Yeah, and I think credit to Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. I think they were so quiet in this game. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the reason so many of these guys are open, the reason Cam Johnson was able to flourish, the reason Mikal Bridges can find space to cut is because of the gravity that both of those guys bring. Devin Booker was getting trapped in this game regularly. DeAndre Ayton was getting swarmed in the paint every time he caught the ball. That's what allows these guys to really do their thing, and I think that's why it's important to have wings next to DeAndre Ayton because they can attack a little easier on that closeout. And I also see, just from another perspective, there seems to be a clear effort to stop shooting so many mid-range shots. Make sure, by the way, if Eddie Johnson, if you're listening right now, just turn the podcast off. Just turn it off right now. You don't want to hear this next. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But let me just say this. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 shots taken outside of the paint and not from the three-point line in that game entirely. Only 5.
And I'm sure a few of those were from Devin Booker. I didn't follow up there. I'm just looking at a shot chart now. And one of them was just outside the paint. In a sense, it was really only 4 shots taken outside of the paint in that game. And I want to say this too. Toronto, one of my favorite teams. Everyone knows I love talking about the Raptors. They play really good defense. They were a little off their game defensively in this game. I think the Suns came out and hit them with something they didn't expect. But to be able to get the shots that they were getting against this Toronto defense, whether or not they were 100% on their game, was very impressive. I was really, really impressed. And just in a general sense, pretty impressed with the team overall so far in these scrimmages and kind of excited to watch them play. I wish they were healthier, though, I guess, is the main thing.
I wish they were healthier only because I think the bench still almost killed it for me. I think it's funny. I think it's important to call out when I have reactionary takes that age poorly. I think it's important for everyone to do that, not just myself. But I say that because Cam Payne shot 0 for 10 in the game against Toronto. And I don't think that's going to be indicative of Cam Payne's performance in the entire bubble. But, a week ago, if you were listening to this podcast, I was talking about, is he the potential solution for the Suns at future backup point guard? And so, just a cautionary tale of don't take anything we say on any episode too seriously. But also just, it would be nice to get more guys healthy because that bench did kind of almost blow it for us again. I don't even blame them because when you're playing Ty Jerome at power forward, you're honestly fucked from the beginning. But yeah, guess that's the extent of my analysis of the game.
Yeah, and we're going to cover pretty extensively with 2 guys who know their shit. Previews of the next 2 games, the first 2 official Suns games in months and months and months. Coming up soon, Matt Modderno, who is the host of the Bleav in Wizards podcast, is going to cover that or preview the Wizards game with us. And our friend Richard Stayman at Mavs Draft on Twitter is going to preview the Dallas Mavericks game. Listen to both those and then watch those games, and we'll see you online, Twitter, Reddit, wherever it is. I think it's going to be a pretty fun start. You got anything else, Sam?
Nope, that's it for me. Oh, wait. Ryan McDonough's on Twitter now.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's how long of a day it was. I don't want to get into a big conversation about this, but that's how long of a day it was that Ryan McDonough hopping on Twitter came towards the end of the night, or the end of the day at least. Took a lot of people by surprise.
I know it was a weird day because I was making up some very obviously fake tweets from Ryan McDonough that people, I think, still don't know are entirely fake.
Well, that's just Twitter, man. You can't bait people that easily because they're gonna believe it. But yeah, I'm looking at Ryan McDonough as of right now is following 0 people. First of all, Ryan, rude, but also 908 followers so far. Followed by a ton of Suns fans that I know, which makes me think that this is going to be a very interesting dynamic with him. Like, Suns fans, for the most part, do not like Ryan McDonough. I still think he had, how do I say this? Positive traits. He had a vision. It didn't work out, but he always had a vision, and that's what I trusted Ryan with. Even if he was selling you bullshit, he was very eloquent in the way that he sold it, I guess.
My thoughts have always been he convinced an owner that never wanted to tank, and I give him credit for that.
And you know what? He left the Suns in 2018 in a pretty good position for the long term. We don't know exactly who had what say in all of the picks in 2018. We don't know if that was a Ryan McDonough decision. We don't know if it was, to some extent, Robert Sarver. To be fair, we never know with Robert Sarver versus his GM. But at the end of the day, when McDonough was fired, he left them in a position where they had Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, and those are the 3 most important guys going forward right now. So it took him too long, but he may have done something right. My point is, this Twitter account may have a really interesting dynamic because it's followed by 50% Suns fans right now, and I don't know if that just means it's going to be people harassing him constantly, and if so, how soon it's going to be before he discovers how to use that block button, because he might need it.
Yeah. I can say that Ryan McDonough becoming a meme was not something I expected to happen today, because that's what happened. I don't think a lot of these people are following him with a lot of love in their heart. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I think they want to find ways to joke about whatever he tweets. And I can't wait, personally. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever people say about that. But let's switch over to our previews of the next 2 games. And let's get to that. Have you ever heard of DealDash.com? It's the best, most honest bidding site where you can win things you'd never expect at a price you'd never believe. They have over 1,000 auctions every day on electronics, Appliances, beauty products, home decor, and even cars. Here's how it works. It's like an auction, but every item starts at $0 and only goes up 1 cent every time you bid. The kicker is that auction clock restarts after just 10 seconds. That means every time you bid, everyone else has 10 seconds to answer or the item is yours. If you go ahead and buy now, Deal Dash is offering our listeners an extra 100 free bids upon sign up on top of their other discounts. Go to DealDash.com and use the offer code TIMELINE or DealDash.fm/timeline. That's DealDash/FM/timeline. Sports are coming back, and so are your chances to bet on your favorite teams and events. Major League Baseball is finally kicking off this week, and there's no better place to start wagering than our exclusive partners, BetOnline. Check out all the odds, futures, and props to bet on, available 24/7. And with the return of sports, BetOnline sat down with former pro players Eddie George, Harold Reynolds, and 7-time NBA champ Robert Horry. See what they had to say on what it'll be like to play without fans in a series they're calling Fandemic. Visit betonline.ag for all your odds and up-to-date sports news. Remember to use promo code BLUEWIRE to receive your new welcome bonus. That's promo code BLUEWIRE. BetOnline, your online wagering experts. Joining us, the host of the Bleav in Wizards podcast, Matt Modderno. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm great, fellas. I'm excited to be chatting with you, and I'm glad we have an actual basketball game coming up to talk about.
Yeah, it's interesting now. It's almost like a whole season starting over again. I feel like we went through the whole preseason cycle and now an actual season, only that it's 8 games and the Wizards are missing half their players or 2 of their best players going into this. Just from your perspective, in a general sense, I'll tell you this. I do this a lot for the Suns. I'll go to the Suns Reddit and I'll just kind of sort by the top posts of the week to kind of view where Suns fans are at before we record every episode. This morning, I went to the Wizards subreddit and I sorted by the top posts of the week. And I think I literally just saw a tumbleweed blow by because there's just not a lot of chatter going on with Wizards fans. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of excitement for these bubble games, being that there's no Beal and no Davis Bertans there. How do you feel about these bubble games as a Wizards fan?
I would like to submit us for just sort of most jaded and tuned out fan base overall anyway. I mean, under normal circumstances, it's just, it's been a frustrating, lean couple of years for the most part. So, like you said, losing the couple guys that people actually care about has not done wonders for the interest level around here. It's been tough for us from a podcast perspective. Just, what can you talk about that people will find compelling when there's probably almost zero chance of them being competitive? So it's a weird world.
Yeah, Matt, it's a little unfortunate there that you're missing so many guys, but you do still have some of these young prospects around. I haven't watched any of the Wizards scrimmages, but I saw obviously Rui Hachimura being your leading scorer. What are the kind of expectations for him going into these 8 games? Is he really the guy that you're kind of focused in on as we move through this next stretch to maybe see just how much scoring potential there is in him, or are there other prospects that you're particularly interested in watching?
I think where we're at kind of roster construction wise, I want to say there's 2 guys on the team like that's down in Orlando that are over 30 years old in Ish Smith and Jan Mahinmi, and Mahinmi probably won't even play, and our entire fan base is ready for him to just like disappear. So for the most part, it's just everybody is a prospect, and this is like super summer league and just a tryout to see if there's any chance that any of them can be. So I think most of our fan base would say that we expect to be like at least a contender for the playoffs next year with everybody reasonably back and healthy. So this is just kind of, hey, can any of these guys, whether it's Rui Hachimura, Troy Brown Jr., Thomas Bryant, Mo Wagner, can any of them actually meaningfully contribute to a playoff push next year? So those are kind of the first couple names that come to mind. So
it sounds like you have just a general assumption that everyone could potentially be back with the team next year. The Wizards are sort of, the vultures are flying around the Wizards roster all over the NBA, whether that be media or fans. The two guys that everyone's targeting as potentially available for other teams next season are, of course, Davis Bertans, who's an unrestricted free agent, so Bertans can sign anywhere. Then, of course, there's the prospect of Beal being traded. Now, I can't imagine, being that you're someone who covers the Wizards, that means Wizards fans are listening to your podcast. I can't imagine that you would be too open to the idea of trading Bradley Beal. But do you have just a general assumption that both of these guys will probably be back with the Wizards next season?
I think if it were any other team, it would be reasonable for people to kind of speculate about maybe they would consider doing something with them. But I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but our owner, Ted Leonsis, has basically openly admitted that they're committed to mediocrity. So like there's no chance that we would blow things up unless it became like, you know, the definition of a dumpster fire. And even then we're still seemingly willing to kind of ride it out. I think, you know, if they can compete for the playoffs, that seems to be good enough for him every year. And, you know, he's kind of does the shake the fist, like we'll never tank thing, which we're kind of tanking this year a little bit anyway, and sort of last year. So a little hypocritical, but I just don't see any way where they get rid of Beal unless he kind of is the one who says like, we have to make a change here. And, you know, that day might come. I don't know if you guys saw any of this, but Beal sort of lashed out on Twitter yesterday because he had been on the Zach Lowe podcast.
Yeah.
The whole thing with that. So, you know, his wife is now like tweeting about like, this is what my husband gets for being loyal to a city in a soft rebuild. And so it's like, you know, that might come to a head eventually, but unless he is like the one screaming, get me out of town, this organization will never ship him out.
So if mediocrity is the goal, and trust me, I feel you there, because for the Suns, mediocrity has been the goal for quite some time, and we're only kind of maybe just getting there a little bit. What are the offseason priorities then? Because as Mike already mentioned, you've got Bertans as a free agent. You also have Shabazz Napier, who is a decent role player for you guys, as an unrestricted free agent. But in terms of bringing in outside help, maybe you don't have to give me specific names, but what are the areas of improvement that you guys are kind of going for outside of just identifying that internal help that you can get through these bubble games, and maybe which prospects and which healthy players will be able to help you out next year as well?
So this is one of the kind of points of contention that we've gone over a lot on our show, is just, if you ask the fan base in general, it's like, we need a classic rim protecting center. Like, we're just so desperate for anybody that isn't like soft as tissue paper, that like, hey, can we get Hassan Whiteside? Hey, can we, you know, trade Rui Hachimura and a lottery pick to go get Tristan Thompson's expiring contract? Like, it's like a desperation level. I'm being a little. All those years of
Gortat really did a number on you guys, huh?
Oh, and a massive overpay to Mahimi. Yeah.
I tell you what, I wrote an article for our local blog here that just at the end of the year, where I listed the top 100 Wizards of the last decade, and I had Gortat third. So that should tell you a lot about where our franchise has been over the last 10 plus years. So,
I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody would know what we're going through here, I think you guys get it. But most people would probably say like a tough defensive big. I actually like Thomas Bryant, who was our starting center for most of the year while healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He's young. He's hurt a lot. He's barely played any NBA minutes. We've had a couple former Wizards on in previous weeks, in Brendan Haywood and Anton Thomas, and both of their feedback was like, look, it takes you like 3 years to be a competent defensive big man in the NBA. You're like the quarterback of the defense a lot, and you're also the guy that's most likely to get embarrassed when someone else doesn't do their job. So. Right. Our starting backcourt for most of this year was Isaiah Thomas, who was one of the worst in the league defensively. Bradley Beal basically stopped caring about defense by like game 2.5. So he had no help. So for me, I actually think they need like the prototypical 3-and-D wing. Like I don't have a name in mind, but think about a young small forward who's like 6'7", super athletic, he might gamble a little bit too much on defense, but he's like active and he can create his own shot. Now imagine if the Wizards had a player like that, maybe somebody that went to the University of Kansas. It's just somebody that you would hope that they wouldn't give away.
Trevor Ariza? No.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just we had the player that I think we could most benefit from, and we gave him away for a corpse, basically.
What did you think when that trade went down? I think, first of all, that was a weird day for Suns fans because there was the whole Marshawn Brooks, Dylan Brooks, rigmarole that was going around. Nobody knew what was happening. And then all of a sudden the trade came out and it was just a straight swap of Trevor Ariza for Kelly Oubre Jr. The assumption by most was that the Wizards saw no future with Kelly Oubre Jr. or they were completely unwilling to sign him at whatever he would have been commanding in free agency, which ended up being, I think, less than a lot of people expected. It was a 2-year, $30 million deal, $15 million a year, basically, which makes him a free agent at the end of next season. What was your feeling when that happened?
We had a GM in Ernie Grunfeld for, 16 years, which is kind of hard to think about, that every move was about like just prolonging his firing another year or cleaning up a bad move he had made the previous year. So most of that was, hey, we want Oubre, but we can't sign him because we have Otto Porter committed to a Fort Knox level of money. And just, it's that was the whole basis of that. It's just, we can't commit to another guy. He's getting hammered for what Porter signed for. We can't give a max deal to Oubre. And rather than wait it out and see, they thought they would try to get something for him that would help them make a playoff push. And Ariza was literally the guy that everyone was salty left in 2015, I think. So it was like, well, yeah, I mean, he's only 4 years older at this point. So how much worse could he have gotten? I don't think they had watched him play in the time since then. So
we hated that experience. We hated Trevor Ariza on the Suns. It was not good.
Yeah, he's a great locker room guy.
Maybe.
Not anymore.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. So it just that I probably cried myself to sleep at least 2 of the 3 nights immediately after that trade.
Wow. Well, if I can comfort you at all, Matt, one prospect of yours that I love, and I don't know if I even should love him because I haven't watched nearly as much of him definitely as you have. Can you talk to me about Isaac Bonga? And because when you were mentioning a second ago, you're talking about 3-and-D wings. He came in as the idea was he's this 6'8", maybe a point guard. As it turns out, he's probably not a point guard at the NBA level, but has been playing a lot of wing for you guys and could maybe slide into that sort of 3-and-D prototype that you were talking about with Oubre. He's a different type of player, but do you think there's potential for him there to really be something for you guys in a couple years?
He's at this point, he's like a layup in D, you don't
okay.
You don't trust the range too far out. The shot's actually gotten better. We have a pretty reasonable, player development staff in Washington. So I'll give them props for that. He already looks like he's made significant progress in it, not sort of skewing into the Michael Kidd-Gilchrist realm of things. It's still kind of a set shot, and that's sort of the issue. But he looks really good sometimes, and then you kind of will realize you've gone 25 minutes without them calling his name, or you didn't notice he wasn't in the game. So he's really inconsistent. He's only 19, I want to say. So just sort of expect, what you would get from a really raw 19-year-old. Really good athlete, really good court vision, been aggressive so far in the bubble, which is good to see. So I think there's more hope for him now than there would have been in December for sure.
Now, I think a lot of Suns fans are looking at this game against the Wizards, which counts, unlike the games we've seen so far, as a game that the Suns should win. The Suns have actually been playing relatively well over the course of the 3 scrimmage games that they've played so far, and are actually almost as healthy as they've been the entire season, with the exception of Kelly Oubre Jr., who's out for an unknown period of time. We're not sure when or if he will play at all in the bubble. And then, of course, Aaron Baines, who's coming back from testing positive for COVID. We don't know when he's going to play either. If the Wizards do compete in that game, or even potentially win that game, what do you think that would look like? Because I think a lot of Suns fans have a hard time picturing it because they're not sure where the production's going to come without two of their best scorers being with the team. Of course, we know Thomas Bryant tends to kill the Suns for some reason, so I think we could expect him to do some damage. But what do you think that would look like?
They're going to be kind of spunky, I think. So at the very least, I'd expect them to be competitive. Hachimura is like a legitimate problem. There's still some work where like he'll have a wide open three within nobody's within 15 feet of him, and he'll dribble into a contested like 18-footer, but he makes a lot of them.
Wait, so is he a problem like a bad thing, or is he a problem like, he's a problem? Like he's okay.
I meant that in sort of the colloquial text there.
The NBA Twitter sense.
The
he's
hashtag
a bucket.
this league.
He's built different.
He's a bucket, one of those sort of generic terms for a guy that can score a lot, but probably won't play a ton of defense. But he's actually been sort of more dialed in on the defensive end. I personally am a little less optimistic about his long-term ceiling than I think most of DC is, because we had the scrimmage against the Clippers and Kawhi shot like 4 of 12. And so like everyone talked about how like Rui locked down Kawhi and he should basically make all, first team all defense this year because of that one scrimmage. But he's tough. He's going to be a hard cover. I don't know who on the Suns draws that matchup. If it's like Saric or somebody, like that's gonna be a tough cover. But Troy Brown Jr. is a reasonable sort of. He's more of like a point wing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really shoot it, but he's really good at sort of pushing the ball in transition. Napier's been a pretty consistent spot up shooter. Thomas Bryant's probably good for 15 and 8.
Against the Suns, Thomas Bryant is good for 50 and 20.
Yeah, exactly. You could probably round up to that. He's looked pretty good. He hasn't played a ton of minutes, but he's just a guy that is going to run the floor and make other bigs work. And I haven't watched a ton of Suns, obviously in the last couple of months, but I don't know how hard Ayton is going to want to work to just like chase him as he dead sprints down the court every time.
Right.
I actually like Ayton. I don't know how big you guys are on him, but I wouldn't say he's like a lockdown, defender or maybe the most dialed in from what I've seen. So Brian at least makes it work on that end.
Yeah, it depends on the day, I think, with Ayton.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes he's great. Yeah,
that goes back to the young guy thing too. So
right.
Those are probably the couple names I would expect if they had big games. And the other one is Jerome Robinson that the Wizards traded away the ghost of Isaiah Thomas to the Clippers to get. He has scoring potential. He hasn't shot really well down in Orlando so far. A couple air balls every game, but I think he's a guy that with like the ultimate green light could maybe get hot and drop 15, something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to watching that game. Sam, you have any other questions before we let Matt go?
Nope. Thank you so much for coming on, Matt, and we are looking forward to it. And I guess whoever loses this one is officially eliminated, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It pretty much seems that way. Good luck, guys. I think your playoff prospects are closer, much more legitimate than ours. So I hope you win it for your sake.
Definitely. Definitely listen to the Bleav in Wizards podcast. And Matt, what's your Twitter handle? People can go follow you.
It's just at Matt Modderno, Modderno. The only thing I'll say on the podcast, we're part of a larger network called the Bleav Podcast Network. So it's actually spelled BLEAV. We didn't pick the name, unfortunately, but the network's overall goal is to pair a host like myself with a former athlete. So I have former Wizard Larry Hughes.
Very cool.
The Warriors podcast
with
Rick
cool.
Barry. So they've got some bigger names and stuff like that. So check us out.
Very cool. Definitely. Thank you for joining us, Matt.
Yeah, take care, fellas.
Big thanks to Matt Modderno for joining us. Now we're going to switch over to the Mavs game preview with Richard Stayman. Okay, joining us to preview the Mavs game, a friend of ours, Richard Stayman, also known on Twitter as @MavsDraft. How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing all right. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited for tomorrow and the game starting back up.
Yes, it's very soon.
I've got a hot take for you right off. Not a hot take, just a hot question right off the press. How afraid of you? Fuck. Watching the question here a little bit right off the bat. How afraid are you of Mikal Bridges on a scale of 1 to 10? And
I'm going to answer both questions. I'm going to answer both questions. I'll start with Mikal Bridges. Like an 8.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Of myself, fully a 10. I'm scared of myself like no other. You can ask Mike when we play 2K, dude. It freaks me out. Not even playing with anybody else, just having them to deal with me.
I just feel like when Luka Doncic closes his eyes at night, he just sees Mikal Bridges' arms in his face.
He's coming for him.
He's coming for him. He's one of the only people that I feel like does a good job on Luka Doncic. How are the Mavs doing so far in the bubble? I haven't actually watched, I think, a single Mavs game so far. What's your feeling about how they've been playing?
So actually, just so I purposely did this because I do this in the preseason too. I'm sorry, I just choked, so I apologize for this. Just very sad thinking about what I'm about to say. I didn't watch actually more than 2 quarters, I think, which was the Lakers game.
Really?
Scrimmage game, just because I did not want to get my hopes up and I've already seen people do it. Antonius Cleveland, one of the two-way guys, has been really good. I was going to ask
you about him.
I don't think he actually plays in the bubble come playoff time.
Okay.
So
right.
For me, it's like, well, I get my hopes up. Yeah, he's good. I've seen the highlights and everything, but man, I actually have not watched a lot of the bubble, but I do freak out about Mikal Bridges. I do see him in my sleep too, those long arms.
Are there any Mavs players that are not there, or is everyone healthy? I haven't really kept up with that.
So the only person not there is Willie Cauley-Stein. They did bring the injured bunch of Jalen Brunson, Dwight Powell, and Courtney Lee. And I think of the 3 of those, obviously, Dwight Powell's been hurt for a while, so I won't even say that they'll miss him the most because they've adjusted without him. They had almost 2 months prior to the shutdown. So I'd say Courtney Lee, which I never in a million years thought I'd say is the one they missed the most, just because he was so good at defense coming in after the All-Star break. I mean, he was locking guys up. So that's going to be missed.
Kind of the interesting thing about your guys' roster composition to me always has been, Rich, that, you have so many, basically that entire roster is just stacked, Jesus Christ, is stacked with like above average players, but not necessarily a clear-cut third option after Luka Doncic or Kristaps. So, just from some of the names you were throwing out there, guys like Jalen Brunson, Dwight Powell, Courtney Lee, obviously names that you're going to miss. I guess the question is there an X factor going in, of like, who's that third guy maybe who can kind of step up? Is it going to be Tim Hardaway Jr.? Is it going to be Seth Curry? Is it going to be DeLon Wright? I don't know. It's just like, it seems like you guys have always had so many above average pieces, but who really are the most reliable contributors for you now that you need to win all of these high stakes games?
Yeah, and I worry about Tim Hardaway Jr. saying that he's the X factor. Because I think if come playoff time, that's your X factor, you're in for a really dangerous situation. Because, yeah, he had some really good moments this year. And for the most part, he's been really good. But he's really volatile. Like, he can give you 1 30-point game and the next game give you 5.
Right.
And that's just not what I want. I'd rather see the third option just be fed on the bench with Seth Curry as the 6th man. I think he's absolutely perfect in every single way for the role he plays. And then I would say another X factor. Obviously, you said DeLon Wright. Getting him in a rhythm, which was not easy during the regular season before the shutdown. So that would be really important. But I'd say Dorian Finney-Smith, this is the first year of his career where his jump shot was actually consistent. So being able to continue that would be huge, I think. I think that's gone supremely underrated throughout Mavs Twitter.
When Sam finished asking that question, I was 100% certain you were going to say Seth Curry. Rich, just based on our conference, for those who don't know, Rich and I play 2K all the time. Sometimes we stream it, so we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. I'm a huge Seth Curry fan. I actually think he's still underrated at this point. What he brings to the Mavericks is just so perfect for their system. He's able to create his own shot, but he doesn't have to rely on it because of the gravity of players like Kristaps Porzingis and, of course, Luka Doncic. How good do you think this team is going to this? It's a weird thing where it's hard to judge. Like, it doesn't feel like whatever our expectations were 4 months ago, or the last time actual games were played 5-6 months ago, whatever it was, it doesn't feel like those apply anymore. It almost feels like any of these teams can go on a run and make it pretty deep, even potentially to the finals, including the Mavericks. How good do you think they are? What do you think is the top potential of this team?
Yeah, I mean, the randomness is absolutely huge. You know, no home court advantage is a massive thing. And we talk about who gets hot and who gets cold every year at the end of the regular season. I mean, you think about like the Pacers versus Hawks when it was 1 versus 8, and it was just polar opposites. One was hot, one was cold, and it went to 7 games. Obviously, the Pacers still won, but besides the point, like hot teams, it matters, hot and cold. So teams don't have that. They don't have the momentum. So I think realistically, and as silly as this would have sounded 5 months ago, the Western Conference Finals, I don't think is out of the picture because all it takes is just getting hot. And the Mavs have shown with the number 1 offense literally ever that they can do that. And I think they can beat teams single-handedly with their offense because their defense, their biggest issue with defense is misses. Like that is far and away their defense is always the worst after they miss. So if they make shots, their defense is going to be really, really good, I think. And I think that's something that could realistically, that could carry over into 1-2 rounds to win.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Rich. I think something that not a lot of people bring up is kind of by expected record, the Mavs kind of underperformed this year. You know, their record just by point differential was supposed to be several wins higher than it actually ended up being. And so I think a lot of people get the idea, they see them sitting in the standings right now at the 7th seed, and they maybe don't fully grasp just how good you guys already are, frankly, which in Luka Doncic's second season is crazy. I guess it comes down to matchups though, right? So like, you know, if you guys stay in the 7th seed and go into a first round matchup against the Clippers, I'm just assuming here, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you feel much less confident about that matchup. Whereas maybe if you leapfrog the Rockets, you win a few extra games and you get to go into the first round against the Nuggets. Maybe that's a much better matchup for you in the first round, and you have a better chance of going further.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you take Denver, who every year we talk about them having one of the best home court advantages, them and Utah. And those are 2 realistic teams that if Dallas comes out in the 8 games and plays really well, they could realistically be playing them. And I mean, I'd much rather have them in Orlando than in Denver or Utah. I do not want either of the LA teams, no matter what city, what bubble it's being played in. That is far and away the absolute worst case scenario. But yeah, no, like jumping Houston, like you said, fully realistic. And it's all about matchups from there.
Yeah, especially with Eric Gordon going down. It's kind of interesting with this. The Suns have been bad for the past long time. But for whatever reason, the Mavericks are a team that the Suns tend to beat a lot. In fact, I think in the last 15 games, they've won 9 of those 15. Just a relative winning record against the Mavericks. Why do you think that happens? At least I don't want you to have to go back until 2010, 2011 and discuss those games. But as of recently, it does seem like the Suns have the Mavericks number a little bit. Just in that matchup, why do you think that favors the Suns in a lot of these areas? Do you think they just get hot against them?
Almost a nice pun there. I like that. But no, I think first of all, one of the matchups which will always stick out to me is I think it was actually twice Devin Booker's career high in Mexico City. The Mexico City games didn't help, which worries me with it being a neutral site. Luckily, elevation a lot closer to 0 in Orlando than a mile.
Right.
But I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm looking at the box score and I tweeted this out. I mean, God, I watched some of the videos from the game in January where the Suns won by, I think, 30 points. And I could not remember it for the life of me. And I finally remember why Rubio tore him apart. It was just the team defense. I feel like Phoenix takes advantage of teams with bad team defense. And overall, I'd say Dallas doesn't have a good team defense. So something like that this year and last year really made them match up well. More so this year, obviously, because Ricky Rubio is there. But I think things like that, they know how to exploit Dallas in that regard.
This also isn't so much of a question for you, Richie, sorry, but just to inject my own point here. I mean, I went back and looked. I saw you tweeted when you were talking about how you were coming onto the podcast tonight, about how that was maybe that game a few months ago in January was maybe the Mavs' worst game of the season when they lost to the Suns. And I went back and looked at the box score there. 32 points for Devin Booker, but also 31 points, 9 rebounds for DeAndre Ayton on 13 of 15 shooting. And he's only matched up against you guys a few times in his career now, but I think it has been an interesting trend so far. DeAndre Ayton, if there's any criticism we've given to DeAndre Ayton thus far in his career, it's that he turns it on and off, right? You never quite know exactly if you're going to get that consistency out of him. He tends to turn it on against the Mavs. And I do wonder, part of me, if there's a certain chip on his shoulder about feeling that he needs to prove something. You know, I know the personal relationship with him and Luka Doncic is very good. They're friends off the court. And it does seem that, you know, they don't hold any animosity between each other. But I'm sure DeAndre hears, you know, coming from the outside, all of the kind of criticisms about whether or not he should have been the number 1 pick. Obviously, Luka Doncic has been the better player thus far in their careers and probably will continue to be. But so I do just wonder if he takes that into some of his matchups. And I don't know what you think about that. I know you, not to out you to all of your Mavs followers, but I know you are a big supporter of DeAndre Ayton. I know that for a fact that you own a DeAndre Ayton jersey, so you certainly have a stake in jersey. So you have a stake in both sides of this kind of, you know, debacle.
He's never lost to the Mavericks, for the record. DeAndre.
Wow. Okay, I did not know that.
It's only 2 games, but they're both W's for the Suns.
I was going to say, because I remember in Dirk's retirement game, I was really sad because I wanted to see Ayton in person. I was almost more excited than Dirk. Not really, though. Not really. Please do not quote me on that.
I mean, he was basically a zombie at that point, but yeah.
Yeah. They shut down literally everybody. I don't even know if Oubre played at that point. They were in Booker. I know didn't play, but I know the game in, what was it, November, where the Mavs won in Phoenix. I know that was part of the suspension, and the Mavs barely won that. So that kind of makes me think that the Suns probably would have been, or Ayton would have been 3-0 in that scenario against Dallas. I mean, dude, that game against Dallas, I mean, he came out there with a mission, and that's kind of what I was saying. Rubio fed him so many easy looks, and obviously not to take him away from him, but he knows how to feed off of him with Rubio, and the Mavs ball watch, and Ayton loves taking advantage of that with teams, and I feel like those are his biggest games where. And it's not always bad teams. I mean, even Utah, I think he killed Gobert, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he does
sometimes.
Well.
Yeah,
I think he
kind of
carried the team there.
There was one this year, the one time this year. And I remember watching it, and like Gobert had to guard 3 people at a time. And whenever that happens, Ayton is going to feast. Like that is his game where the big man has to watch multiple people. Ayton wins. Like there's almost no times I feel like where he loses that, you know?
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir here. Suns fans are loving this.
You've seen more games than I have, but like from what I've seen, it's always that if it's 2-on-1 for him and he's the one, and obviously it's almost flipped in that way, like he's winning. Because I think personally he's one of the best post players, just post scorers, not necessarily in skill, but literally efficiency. I don't have the numbers to back that, but he's so quick in the post.
It's interesting you mentioned that, though, because, you know, Mike and I were talking about this on an episode we recorded a few days ago. The Suns haven't really been running any DeAndre Ayton post-ups in these scrimmages.
He's shooting threes now.
He's shooting threes now. And it's kind of it's always walking a fine line between how you want to develop this guy, because if you're going to have him shoot threes now, and I absolutely think he should to modernize his game, then there are certain sacrifices that have to be made. Personally, I think all of the sacrifice should come from that mid-range jumper of his that I hate so much. I don't think the sacrifice should come as much from his post-ups, which I actually think are pretty good. And even in 2020, I think they provide kind of a certain value to your offense if you're as good at them as he is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm sure you've seen Eddie Johnson hates Mavs fans because of post-ups. But
Eddie Johnson hates Suns fans too. So
that's right.
True.
Right
that
there.
is true.
He thinks that Kristaps should post up, right? That's a weird
Oh
thing.
my God, I forgot about that.
Should not be posting up. He has no post-up ability. So
no.
If you're good at posting up, the post-up is still not efficient or inefficient. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's a good shot if you are good at it. Surprisingly.
Imagine what Coach Eddie Johnson would do with a player like Jaren Jackson Jr. He would just destroy a player like that.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I
he
think
gets benched for taking a 3.
with Ayton specifically, I think they still have they have to explore like him playmaking out of the post too. I don't think that that's something they've done. They've trusted him enough to do just yet. I don't think that it's something that they've kind of shied away from doing. I just think they haven't really had time to work that into his game. They're developing him relatively slowly. But yeah, I agree with that. Just in general, I do like the idea of the sort of mid-post elbow catch being taken out of the game entirely. But that sort of low post, if he can get to it, especially in mismatches, I think they have to get the ball to him, and he can either score or play make out of that position. I hope that happens. So the game is on Sunday. It's only a few days away. I'm going to put you on the spot, Rich. Do you have a prediction for this game? Even if it's not necessarily who wins or loses, just even like an individual thing that you expect to happen.
Man, so individually for me, I expect chaos on my timeline fully. Because I have so many. So I'm like right in the middle of Mavs and Suns Twitter.
You do.
So for me, that's what I'm seeing is right ahead is I see chaos on my timeline, especially if somehow like the Suns or Mavs drop their first game. I do not wish that upon either team.
Yeah.
But individually, I mean, I'm really excited just to see how. I mean, God, is it cliche to say Luka? Because, dude, I really want to see Luka in a meaningful game.
Not at all. No, it's not cliche at all. That's the reason to watch your team right now, if we're being honest. And
it's like the guy's an MVP candidate. He makes everybody else better. And how's it going to be with, no Courtney Lee? Like I said earlier, I mean, as weird as it sounds to say, Courtney Lee actually was an important person for the final month of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested to see, I guess, how that goes. I know you said individually, but I'm really interested to see how that goes on the Mavs side. And then this brings me into the Sun side, if Mikal Bridges exploits that weakness at the ring.
There's going to be a little bit of both, and that's where the chaos is going to come in, because I'm going to be honest with you. Luka's going to be the best player on the court, because he is. He's just factually is the best player on the court between both teams. And Suns fans, don't come at me with a Devin Booker. Look, Devin Booker's great, but it's not an argument right now.
No.
But Mikal Bridges is going to strip Luka Doncic at least once. Mike is going to post a kind of poorly grabbed video of it on his Twitter feed. And
with a lot of capital letters.
With a lot of capital letters, and that video is going to blow up, and it's going to get like 30,000 plus
no,
on Twitter. That's my prediction.
More than a million. More than
a million.
It's only happened once, and it was a Mavs highlight. So.
Well, we have to be kind of careful now, guys, because up until this point, we've been riding the wave of Mikal Bridges as this, underrated. He's the hipster. He's the hipster NBA Twitter player. Mikal Bridges is like a rare IPA that only.
It was only us, Jackson Frank, Cole Zwicker, and that's it. That's all we had.
Yeah, basically. And now we're walking a fine line here, because the casuals are about to know. And for all this time, we've wanted the casuals to know in a certain sense, right? Because we want Mikal Bridges to get the recognition he deserves. But if he keeps playing like he has been in these scrimmages, watch out, because he is going to be the new target in trade proposals for every fan base in the NBA from the Knicks. And that is what we're scared of.
Dude, that reminds me of Jonathan Isaac and Mikal Bridges have to be the two winners of this hiatus. Like nobody else is, and Bol, I guess. But Bol is like a week, so I don't count him.
He might not play
Mikal Bridges had hype on Twitter. Like people were posting his videos the same way with Jonathan Isaac. People were like, wow, this guy's good. People woke up. And those are two guys that I never understood why they never got more hype, especially Mikal. People.
Well, I understand why. Mikal averages 8 points per game.
Yeah,
and look,
and
for a large segment
for a lot of people.
Right.
I get it, but have you seen him play defense?
Right.
No, I know. I mean, Rich, you're preaching to the choir, and our listeners are eating this up. But you also got to realize that we comprise a small percentage of the overall community. That's even interested in defense in the first place, right?
Especially that kind of defense, right? Because it's like a special kind of defensive IQ type defense where it's not necessarily just matching up against a guy, and he does that obviously, and Jonathan Isaac does that, but the kind of reading a play and figuring out where the ball's going ahead of time, that's the kind of thing that you really have to pay attention to see, and that's what makes both of those guys fun. Sam, do you got anything else for Richard before we let him go?
Rich, I got one more thing for you. A little bit of news broke today, unfortunately. This is on the more negative end of things about a renewed kind of investigation into the Mavs over kind of a new sexual assault allegation for the first time in a couple of years. So, in the event that Mark Cuban kind of comes under hot water again, the Suns, obviously, we started off our episode, Mike and I, by talking about Robert Sarver on our end. Would you trade owners? Are you interested in that?
God, not where I thought this was going. Yeah, hard pass.
Okay.
This stuff has been awful. I mean,
I think it does.
This is really bad luck for Cuban, and
It's in all seriousness, it is a very bad look, and I do think it prompts a conversation. I think Robert Sarver and James Dolan, for a long time, have been considered two of the worst owners in the NBA for good reason. I think Mark Cuban has kind of gotten away from any of that because he's run a very good basketball program. A very successful one that for a very long time has just generated these successful teams. And you guys have been very good. And he's passionate as a basketball fan, but he also knows how to get out of the way and kind of let the basketball ops people do their job. On the other hand, there's this other stuff that comes out and it does kind of make you think, right, about, well, this organization kind of alleged that they were going to clean up their act a couple years ago. And perhaps that's not the case.
Yeah. And dude, like it was a horrible PR response and everything. I mean, it was just as terrible as you could have drawn it out. They're like, but what about our brand? And it's like, dude, like, are you kidding me right now?
Right.
Like, it's almost laughable. It's like, how can you actually say this? Like, and say, yes, this is what we need to be publishing. Like, it's disgusting. He's really making his way up there with, like, he's really good owner. And like you said, the basketball side, he's great with. But I mean, there's no question right now he needs to be under fire for all of this stuff on the non-basketball side of the organization.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to follow that story. It's not super fun. It's not even basketball, really. So we're not fully equipped to cover it, to be honest. But yeah, we'll definitely be following that as it goes. But Richard, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fun. I look forward to watching the game and tweeting Mikal Bridges highlights at you as it happens. Don't forget to follow Richard on Twitter at Mavs Draft. You also have at Mavs Draft or Film, right? At Mavs Draft Film. That's
you'll see all of my videos 10 seconds before I post them on Mavs Draft there.
Yeah, exactly. So follow both of those. I know he covers the draft for the Mavs, but it's the draft, right? That's everyone. Everyone has to draft a player unless Robert Sarver sells the draft pick. Thanks again for joining us, Rich.
Yeah, thank you.
Huge thanks to Matt Modderno and Richard Stayman for joining us. Don't forget to follow both of them on Twitter. Looking forward to some Suns basketball this week. We'll be back next week with a new episode breaking down how the Suns did.
Mikal per game as Bridges able to get it over the top of Gasol. His team second.
Good move right there. I mean, just the hesitation.
Three-point shooter. And so is this guy as he brought his three-point shooting to the bubble.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in the new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series premiering Sunday, June 6th, only on Showtime.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it, and trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Ro Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Rose Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you can go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/fourth for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and/or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.